I should have looked away sooner. That is the part nobody believes when a story begins like this. They imagine a man leaning toward a window with bad intentions. But I was standing on my own fire escape with a cracked planter in one hand and a bag of potting soil in the other, trying not to drop both into the alley 3 floors below when the curtain across the narrow courtyard slipped off its rod. 1 second there was pale linen over the opposite window. The next second there was Mara Bennett from 3C, half turned in front of a mirror, fighting with the back zipper of a dark green dress. She was not exposed the way a cheap story would make it sound. One shoulder bare, hair pinned up, the dress caught below her shoulder blades. But she was private. That was enough. I froze for one embarrassed second, and in that second she saw me in the mirror. Our eyes met through glass, courtyard, and humiliation. I turned so fast the planter cracked against the railing. Soil spilled over my shoes. "I'm sorry," I called without looking back. "Your curtain fell. I didn't mean to. I'm going inside." Her window shut. 2 minutes later, someone knocked on my apartment door. When I opened it, Mara stood in the hallway wearing the same dress, a cardigan pulled around her shoulders, one hand gripping the back to keep it in place. Her cheeks were flushed, but her chin was lifted. I thought she had come to slap me. Instead, she looked at the soil on my shoes, the panic on my face, and said, "Come help me." Before we go further, tell me honestly, if someone you barely knew asked for help at the exact moment you felt most ashamed, would you step in or step away? Like this story, if you believe one honest choice can change everything, and subscribe for more slow-burn love stories about trust. I kept both hands visible, like I was negotiating with a police officer. "Mara, I'm really sorry. I should have turned around faster. You did turn around, not fast enough." Her mouth twitched, almost a smile, but her eyes were tight. "I'm not here to discuss your reaction time. I have a zipper stuck where I can't reach it, a curtain rod that betrayed me, and a car service that just canceled. I'm supposed to be at the Phillips house in 40 minutes. If I don't show up, a room full of people will think I was afraid to face them." I knew the Phillips house. Old brick mansion, marble steps, charity events where wealthy people drank champagne and called it service. Mara did alterations from a small studio on Wickenden Street. I had seen garment bags outside her door, rolls of fabric leaning against the wall, and her name painted in gold on a narrow shop window. "Face who?" I asked. She glanced down the hallway. "Can you help or not? I can fix a curtain rod. I can drive." "But the zipper—" "I'll stand behind the folding screen. You won't see anything. You'll just pull the fabric away from the teeth with needle-nose pliers. I tried, but I can't get the angle." "You own needle-nose pliers? I'm a seamstress, Jake, not a princess." That was the first real thing I liked about her. Not the pretty thing. Though she was beautiful in a way that felt unplanned, with thick brown hair always escaping whatever tried to hold it. It was the edge in her voice, the boundary, the refusal to become helpless just because she needed help. "Let me grab my toolbox," I said. Mara's apartment looked less like a home than a backstage room. Racks of dresses lined one wall. A sewing machine sat under the window that faced mine. Spools of thread filled glass jars by color. On the dining table lay sketches of women in gowns, all drawn with quick, dark lines. The curtain rod had ripped out of old plaster, leaving a chalky wound above the window. "I'll fix that first," I said, grateful for a problem made of screws. "The zipper first," Mara said. "I can't breathe." She hurt herself and closed her eyes. Not like that. The lining twisted. "All right. Screen. Pliers. You tell me what to do." She pointed to a folding screen painted with faded blue cranes. "You stand there. I stand here. No mirrors, no reflections, no heroics." "No heroics," I repeated. Behind the screen I saw only the hem of the dress and her bare feet. She guided my hand to the stuck place, by reaching around with 2 fingers, careful and impersonal. I kept my eyes on the brass zipper teeth as if the fate of civilization depended on them. "The fabric is caught on the left," she said. "I see it." "Don't yank. Bad plumbers yank," I said. "Good carpenters negotiate." She gave a small laugh, surprised out of herself. The sound changed the room. I worked the lining free with the tip of the pliers. The zipper moved an inch. She exhaled. I eased it up the rest of the way, then stepped back so fast I hit the coffee table with my calf. All set. Behind the screen, she was quiet. "Mara?" "Thank you," she said, softer than before. I turned to the window while she adjusted the cardigan and came out. The green dress looked simple, fitted, elegant, the kind of dress that did not ask for attention but kept it. It made her look taller and more certain, though tension still sat in her shoulders. "You made that?" I asked. "My mother designed the original. I finished it." I heard the difference between made and finished, but I did not ask. Not yet. I patched the curtain bracket with anchors from my toolbox. As I worked, my phone buzzed. A message from my boss, Nolan. "Reminder, inspection report for Wickenden Block due Monday. Need recommendation strong enough for redevelopment review." I turned the screen down, but Mara had already seen it. "Wickenden Block?" she asked. "It's a row of commercial spaces. I'm doing a structural review. My studio is in that row." Of course I knew that. What I had not known was how quickly the fact would feel like a door closing between us. "I haven't finished the report," I said. "But you're writing it. For the developer. For my company. The developer hired us. The developer wants us out. I assess the structure, not the politics. That must be nice." The room cooled. I had fixed the zipper, fixed the curtain, and somehow stepped on a landmine I had not seen because I had been too busy being careful about the wrong thing. "I won't lie in a report," I said. "I didn't ask you to." She took a breath and looked away. "I'm sorry. That was unfair. Maybe not completely." The green dress caught the lamplight. Her face did not. "I still need a ride. It would have been cleaner to step away. I had been divorced for 2 years, and the one promise I made afterward was that I would stop confusing rescue with love. My ex-wife used to say I fixed cabinets because people were harder. She was not wrong. But Mara was not asking to be rescued. She was asking to get to a place where she planned to stand on her own feet. "I can drive," I said, "but I'm not going as the guy who works for the developer." "Then go as the guy with potting soil on his shoes who owes me one. I owe you more than one." She studied me. "Start with the ride." On the way to the Phillips house, Mara sat with her clutch pressed between both hands. My truck smelled faintly of cedar shavings and coffee. Rain turned every traffic light into a red smear. "So," I said carefully, "who thinks you're afraid to face them?" "The Heritage Arts Board. A few donors. My former fiancé." The last words landed harder than the rest. "He's on the board?" "He is the reason I was invited and the reason I almost stayed home." She rubbed a thumb over the clutch. "Gavin and I opened the studio together 3 years ago. He handled money and marketing. I did the work. My mother's sketches were the foundation for our first collection. After she died, he told everyone the designs were his concept, that I was too emotional to run the business, that he had been carrying me. And they believed him? People believe the person who speaks first, in a calm voice. I hated how true that sounded. She glanced at me. "Tonight they're choosing a local designer for a scholarship partnership. I need it. It would keep my studio alive if the building survives. Gavin told them I wouldn't even show up. So you showed up in a dress connected to your mother. I showed up in proof. At the Phillips house." She stopped under the side entrance awning. Mist clung to her hair. For the record, I don't forgive you for looking. I know. But I believe you didn't mean to. I'll spend the rest of my life turning away from windows faster. The rest of your life is dramatic. I'm a contractor. We overestimate timelines. She laughed, and this time it stayed. Inside, the foyer smelled of lilies and polished wood. Gavin Price crossed toward us with a smile that looked professionally maintained. He was tall, blonde, and dressed in a navy suit that probably cost more than my first truck. "Mara," he said warmly. I was starting to worry. I said I would come, I know. I just thought, after everything, maybe tonight would be too much. His eyes slid to me. "And you are?" "Jake Mercer," I said. "Neighbor. Just a neighbor?" Mara answered before I could. "A good one." Something in Gavin's eyes hardened, then smoothed over. "Presentation starts in 15 minutes. Try not to disappear." When he walked away, Mara whispered, "That was him behaving." I gathered. "You didn't have to say anything." "I know. Why did you?" "Because you said you needed a witness." She said nothing. But when she walked into the ballroom, she did not ask me to stay behind. For the first half hour, I stood near a column and watched her become sharper in the room. Not fake, focused. She thanked donors, adjusted the strap on a student model's gown, and greeted older women by name. People leaned toward her despite themselves. Gavin circled quietly, touching elbows, dropping little comments I could not hear but could see land. Then the board chair stepped onto a platform. "We're delighted to hear from two designers whose work has shaped our local arts community. First, Gavin Price." Mara's face went still. He told me I was presenting first. Gavin took the microphone. Behind him, two easels displayed enlarged sketches. I recognized the style from Mara's dining table. Dark lines, a green dress with a clean fall. Her mother's sketches. Gavin began talking about legacy, mentorship, and honoring women artists. Every sentence moved him closer to owning what was not his. Mara took one step, then stopped. If she interrupted, he would call her emotional. If she stayed quiet, he would steal the room. I leaned toward her. "Do you have proof?" "In my clutch. Photos, dates, my mother's initials." "Then use them. It'll look ugly. It already is." Her eyes flicked to mine. "Not loud," I said, clear. On stage, Gavin clicked to another image. This particular piece began as an idea I had during a difficult period. Mara moved. She did not rush. She walked to the platform, stood beside him, and let the microphone catch her breath. "Gavin," she said, "calm as glass. You're showing my mother's work." The ballroom rustled. Gavin chuckled softly. "Mara, this isn't the moment. You're right. It should have been handled privately when I asked you to return the archive. But you chose this moment." His jaw tightened. "I'm sure this is emotional for you. That sentence has done a lot of work for you." Someone near me whispered, "Oh." Mara opened her clutch and removed photographs. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. She showed the board chair the back of one sketch, where initials and a date were written in blue ink. "My mother drew the original in 1998, she said. "I finished the pattern last month. I have drafts, fabric receipts, fitting notes, and the dress itself. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm here because my work keeps being described as someone else's patience." I had never heard a quieter knockout. Gavin stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Careful. You still need allies." I stepped to the edge of the platform. "Is that a threat?" Gavin looked down at me. "This is private." "No," the board chair said, taking the photograph from Mara. It appears to be a board matter. The room shifted. Not a victory, not yet, but enough. People looked at the sketches differently. Gavin left through a side door, pale with anger. Mara made it to a hallway outside the ballroom before the air left her. I found her beside a closed library, one hand against the wall. "Breathe," I said. "I am breathing." Arguably, she laughed once, almost a sob. I hate that he can still make me feel 17. You're not 17. No, I'm 32 and shaking in a hallway while my neighbor watches me fall apart for the second time tonight. I'm not watching you fall apart. What are you watching then? I thought about the window. The shame of being seen before you choose it. I'm watching you stand back up. Her eyes filled, but the tears did not fall. The board did not decide that night. They wanted documentation. Gavin had submitted his own files. Mara accepted that with grace. I drove her home after midnight through wet streets. Finally, she said, "Your report on my building. Will it say we have to leave?" I don't know yet. That sounds like a yes in a nicer coat. It's not. There are cracks and water damage. There's also a difference between unsafe and inconvenient to repair. Developers love inconvenient. Yes. And your boss? My boss loves clean recommendations, meaning demolition, meaning whatever keeps liability low and the client happy. She turned toward the passenger window. I gripped the wheel. I haven't submitted anything. But you will. And when you do, people will believe you because you have the clipboard. The words hit because they were true. A report in my voice would carry weight, maybe more than her rent receipts, her sketches, her memories, her mother's work spread across a dining table. "I'll be accurate," I said. "I hope that's enough." The next morning, I went to the Wickenden block with a ladder, moisture meter, flashlight, and a bad feeling. Mara's studio sat between a used bookstore and a tiny bakery. Her sign read, "Bennett and Bell Alterations" in gold paint. Bell, I guessed, had been her mother. My assistant, Theo, met me in the rear alley with coffee and a tablet. "You look like a guy about to disappoint someone," Theo said. "I look like that every morning." "No, usually you look like a guy who already disappointed someone and made a spreadsheet about it." We inspected the rear wall. The cracks were real. The leaks were real. But so were the shortcuts in the developer's preliminary file. Photos cropped to make damage look continuous. Notes describing settling as active failure without current measurements. One section labeled "rot beyond repair" was damp. Yes, but not beyond repair. At 10, Mara arrived with a garment bag and 2 coffees. She stopped when she saw me. "I didn't know you'd be here. I didn't know you brought peace offerings to inspections. One is mine, one is Theo's. Yours is the steam rising off my suspicion." Theo took a coffee. "I like her. You like anyone with caffeine," I said. Mara unlocked the studio. Inside, the place smelled of fabric, chalk, and lavender. It was narrow but beautiful. Patterns hung from clips. A long cutting table ran down the center. Near the back, framed photos showed Mara with an older woman who had the same strong mouth. "My mother," she said. "I can see it." She opened the shop when she was 28. People told her alterations weren't real design. She said making a woman feel like her own body belonged to her was design enough. I looked at the cracked ceiling and the buckets under 2 leaks. "How long has the roof been leaking? Before the developer bought the block?" "A little. After? More." Theo and I exchanged a glance. "What?" Mara asked. "Do you have maintenance requests?" She laughed without humor. "So many I could wallpaper the bathroom." "Can I see them?" Her expression changed. "Why?" Damage caused by ignored maintenance is different from unavoidable structural failure. She set the coffees down slowly. Different how? Different in who is responsible. Different in whether demolition is the only remedy. Different in whether a report should mention neglect. Hope is dangerous to give too early. I saw her reach for it anyway, then pull back. "Don't do that," she said. "Do what?" "Make it sound possible if it isn't." "I won't promise. But I need to see the requests. For the next week, we worked like people defusing a bomb. Mara printed emails. Theo photographed leaks. I measured cracks and compared them with old city records. At night, Mara dug through her mother's archive while I reviewed building files at her dining table. We ate takeout over sketches and inspection notes, pretending exhaustion was a reasonable substitute for boundaries. We did not touch except by accident. A hand brushing over a folder, her shoulder bumping mine as we leaned over photographs, my fingers closing around a mug she was still holding. Each time, we noticed. Each time, we stepped back. The space between us began to feel less like distance and more like a question. On Thursday, Mara found a cassette behind her mother's old sewing machine. The label read, "Mara, green dress notes." "A cassette?" I said. Aggressively, 1998. My mother didn't trust computers. She said anything that could delete itself was not a place for memory. She found an old player in a closet. After 3 tries, her mother's voice filled the apartment, warm and grainy. "Mara is 13 today," the voice said. "She says the green dress should have a higher back because women should move without worrying who is looking. I told her that is not fashion, that is engineering, and she rolled her eyes at me." Mara covered her mouth. Her mother continued, speaking about seams, dignity, movement. Then she laughed and said, "This one is hers as much as mine, maybe more. She sees what I miss." The tape clicked. Silence returned. "That's proof," I said quietly. Mara nodded, but tears slipped down now. She remembered me as brave. I don't remember being brave. You were 13 and redesigning dresses for dignity. That counts. She wiped her face. Gavin used to say my mother loved the idea of me more than the real me. I hate that I let him put his voice over hers. I wanted to cross the room. Instead, I asked, "May I sit beside you?" She looked at me then, and something shifted because I had asked. Yes. I sat on the floor beside her. She leaned her head back against the couch. Not against me, but close enough that the choice mattered. "I'm tired of being careful," she whispered. With him, with everyone, with myself, with windows, with needing help and then hating myself for needing it. "I get that last part. Your divorce?" I nodded. My marriage ended slowly. I kept fixing things that weren't the problem. The porch railing, the kitchen tile, her car, our budget. Anything except asking whether she still wanted to be there. Did she? No. I think I was more in love with being necessary than being known. Mara was quiet. Then she asked, "Why are you helping me, Jake?" Because she opened the door when she could have locked it. Because she stood up to Gavin with trembling hands and a steady voice. Because she made things fit people instead of forcing people to fit things. But honest does not always mean complete. Because you asked, I said, and because you're right. Her gaze dropped to my mouth for half a second. Mine dropped to hers. Then my phone rang. Nolan. Mara closed her eyes. Of course. I answered because 3 missed messages were already on the screen. Nolan skipped hello. I got a call from the client. They say you've been spending unusual time with one tenant. I'm doing the inspection. They say there's a conflict. Are you personally involved with Bennett? No. The word came out quickly. Too quickly. Mara flinched as if I had slammed a door. I turned away, hating the fact that the honest answer was no, and still sounded like denial. Good, Nolan said. Keep it that way. Submit the preliminary tomorrow morning. Recommend vacancy pending redevelopment. We can add repair alternatives later. No. Silence. What did you say? I won't recommend vacancy if the data doesn't support it. You're making a career decision over a woman you claim you're not involved with. I'm making a professional decision, then act like a professional. Tomorrow, Jake. He hung up. Mara stood by the table with the cassette in her hand. You should go. Mara. It's fine. It's not fine. You said no, because he asked if I was personally involved with you. And you're not. No, I mean, not like he meant. She smiled, but it hurt to look at. That is a very precise sentence. Mara, my report has to be clean. If it looks like I wrote it because of what? Because you accidentally saw me through a window? Because you fixed a zipper? Because we ate noodles over city records and listened to my dead mother on a cassette tape? Because I care what happens to you. The words sat between us, finally out. Not enough and too much. Her eyes shone. That's still not the same as choosing me. I had no answer fast enough. She nodded. Good night, Jake. Friday morning, I wrote the report. Not the one Nolan wanted. Not the one Mara hoped for. The true one. I documented cracks, roof leaks, drainage failures, concealed mortar patches, and evidence of deferred maintenance. I wrote that portions of the building required immediate shoring and repair, but full vacancy was not supported for all units based on current data. I wrote that demolition as a first remedy would be premature without an independent preservation engineer. Before sending it, I stared at the final paragraph for 10 minutes. Professional language can hide cowardice or carry courage. It depends where you put the weight. I added one sentence. Current conditions appear aggravated by documented neglect after ownership transfer. Then I sent it to Nolan, the developer, and the city inspector copied on the original request. Nolan called within 2 minutes. I did not answer. At 11, he suspended me pending review. At noon, Mara texted. Did you send the report? I typed yes. Then, I heard you got suspended. Why didn't you tell me? I wrote, because I didn't want it to be a debt. She did not respond. The weekend stretched mean and quiet. I did not see her on the steps. Her curtains stayed closed. Mine did too, which felt childish. On Sunday, I bought new brackets for her window but left them in my toolbox. Help, I was learning, was not always welcome just because it was sincere. Monday evening, Theo showed up with pizza and a grin. You're famous, he said. I'm suspended. Temporarily. City inspector opened a maintenance review. Developer is furious. Preservation group is sniffing around. Nolan is pretending this was all part of our rigorous process? That sounds like Nolan. You talked to Mara? No. You should. She asked for space by not answering. Or she asked for you not to decide what she needs without asking her. I hated when young people were right. Before I could answer, someone knocked. Mara stood outside in jeans and a sweater, holding the new curtain brackets. You left these by your toolbox in the hall, she said. No, I didn't, I know. Mrs. Alvarez stole them from your toolbox because she said both of you are idiots. From downstairs, Mrs. Alvarez shouted. I said stubborn, not idiots. Mara and I looked down the stairwell. For the first time in 3 days, I laughed. Mara tried not to, failed, and the sound loosened something in my chest. She held up the brackets. Come help me. The same words, different doorway, different woman, different man hearing them. I stepped into the hall, then stopped. Are you asking because you need brackets installed, or because you want to talk? Yes, she said. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. In her apartment, the window was bare again, but this time not by accident. The courtyard lights glowed beyond the glass. My own apartment looked close enough to touch. I installed the brackets slowly. Mara stood by the sewing table, twisting thread around one finger. "I listened to the tape again," she said. Then I listened to myself. "Those are different experiences." I tightened a screw. "What did you hear? That I keep asking to be seen and then punishing people when they see me at the wrong angle?" She lifted her chin. "I'm not apologizing for being angry." "Good. But I am sorry I made your career risk about me. It was about the report. It was also about me." I turned. "Yes. But not as a debt. Not as proof that I deserve anything. I did it because I could not unsee the truth." She studied my face. "When Nolan asked if you were involved with me, you said no. It hurt." "I know. Were you lying?" "No." I crossed the room, stopping a few feet away. "I wasn't involved with you then, not in a way I had any right to claim. I cared. I wanted. I was scared. But I hadn't asked, and you hadn't chosen. After the way the week began, the last thing I wanted was to make you feel looked at again without permission." Her eyes lifted. "If he asked me today whether my feelings create a conflict," I said, "I'd say yes. Then I'd remove myself from the project, not from you." Her lips parted. "That is," I added, "if you want me anywhere near you." The radiator hissed. Somewhere downstairs, a television laugh track rose and faded. Mara stepped closer. "I don't want to be rescued." "I know. I don't want to be someone's brave little project." "I know that too. I want my studio. I want my mother's name cleared. I want to walk into rooms without rehearsing how to survive them." Her voice softened. "And I want someone who helps when I ask, stops when I say stop, and tells the truth even when it costs him. I can try to be that man. No heroics? No heroics." She smiled. "Good. Because I might want to kiss you, and I would hate for you to treat it like a rescue mission." My heart kicked. "You might?" "I'm considering it." "Would asking help?" "It would, so I asked." "Mara, may I kiss you?" She closed the remaining distance herself. "Yes." The kiss was careful at first, then warmer, her hand resting against my chest, my fingers light at her waist. No thunder, no music, no sudden promise that life would be simple. Just a kiss with room inside it for all the asking that came before. For a while after that, we simply stood there, embarrassed and smiling like teenagers, though both of us had enough scars to know better. She touched the old folding screen with 2 fingers and said she used to hide behind it when clients cried during fittings, not because she disliked their tears, but because she believed privacy made dignity easier. I told her dignity could have company too, as long as company knew how to knock. The next week did not magically fix everything. Good stories lie when they pretend love erases paperwork. Nolan unsuspended me after the city inspector praised the thoroughness of the report, though he treated silence like an apology. I requested removal from further Wickenden decisions because of a personal conflict. I used those exact words. Personal conflict. It felt terrifying and clean. Mara faced the Heritage Arts Board with her mother's cassette digitized, sketches dated, students ready to speak for her, and me sitting in the back row where she could see me but not need me. Gavin came with a statement about misunderstandings and shared creative environments. The board listened politely. Then a student named Priya stood and said Mara had altered her prom dress for free after her father lost his job, adding pockets because Priya needed somewhere to keep her insulin. "That's her design philosophy," Priya said. "She notices what people need to carry. That won the room more than any document. Any. Mara received the scholarship partnership 2 days later. The email used phrases like unanimous decision and honoring Lillian Bell's legacy. Mara read it 3 times in my kitchen, then sat on the floor because her knees gave out. I sat beside her, close but not touching until she reached for my hand. "See?" I said, standing back up. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You're going to make that a thing, aren't you?" "Probably. Contractors love structural metaphors. We have limited range. By summer, the Wickenden block wasn't saved all at once, but it had time. Repairs began on the roof. Tenants formed an association. The bakery created a pastry shaped like a tiny, hard hat and called it the Injunction, which told you everything you needed to know about our neighborhood. Mara's curtains stayed up. So did mine. Sometimes she lifted one corner and waved across the courtyard with exaggerated seriousness. The first time she did it, I looked away too fast on purpose. She called my phone. "You can look when I'm waving, Jake. I'm committed to excellence. You're committed to being ridiculous. Also true." On the night of her first student showcase, she wore the green dress again. Not because she needed proof this time, because she liked how it moved. The showcase took place inside the repaired Wickenden building, under temporary lights strung from reinforced beams. Photographs of Lillian Bell hung along one wall. Students displayed altered jackets, gowns, uniforms, and work shirts, each with a card explaining not just how it had been changed, but why. Mara stepped onto a small platform. This time nobody stood beside her trying to steal the moment. She found me near the back and smiled as if we shared a secret. "When my curtain fell a few months ago," she began, and the room chuckled because our neighborhood had no respect for privacy once Mrs. Alvarez learned a story. I thought the worst thing in the world was being seen before I was ready. But I've learned that the right people don't take from what they see. They ask how to help. They wait for the answer. And they stay honest when helping gets complicated. I swallowed hard. Afterward, I stayed back while students crowded around her. Not because I was unsure, but because I loved watching her belong to her own life. She found me anyway. "You're doing the thing," she said. "What thing?" "Standing far away so I can have my moment." "Is it annoying?" "No." She took my hand. "But the moment has room." We walked outside after midnight. The repaired sign above her studio window gleamed under the streetlight. Bennett and Bell Design Studio. Mara leaned against me, tired and happy. "Do you remember what I said at your door? You said, 'Come help me.' And you looked like I'd asked you to defuse a bomb. It was a zipper. Very high stakes." She laughed. Then her voice softened. "I'm glad you helped. I'm glad you learned when not to. I'm glad I opened the door." I looked at the woman beside me, at the studio she had fought for, at the window where the green dress now stood not as evidence, but as invitation. Me too. Across the street, Mrs. Alvarez honked from her nephew's parked car and shouted, "Kiss already! Some of us are old." Mara groaned. I laughed. Then I did not perform for Mrs. Alvarez or the street or the ghosts of men who had looked without asking. I turned to Mara. "May I?" She rolled her eyes, smiling. "Still yes." So I kissed her under the sign with her mother's name, softly enough that it belonged only to us. Later, when we climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor of our old brick building, Mara paused between our doors. Mine on the left, hers on the right. The hallway light flickered like it always did. She held up 2 keys. "Your place or mine?" I pretended to consider. "Which one has the better curtain brackets?" "Mine." "Then yours." She opened her door, stepped inside, and looked back at me with the same words that had started everything, But this time there was no panic in them, no shame, no emergency, just warmth, choice, and a future neither of us had to force. "Come help me," she said. "With what?" She smiled. "Taking down the old folding screen. I don't think we need it anymore." We carried it together to the storage closet, one careful step at a time. Then we left the curtains open to the quiet courtyard and made coffee even though it was almost 1 a.m. Because love, real love, does not always arrive as fire. Sometimes it arrives as a repaired wall, a steady hand, an honest report, a question asked before a kiss, and 2 people finally brave enough to be seen. If this story made you think of someone who helped without trying to own the moment, leave a comment with the words, "Ask first." And if you believe love should feel like safety, honesty, and choice, not pressure, share this with someone who still needs to hear that being seen can be gentle.